The first time I suspected something was wrong, it wasn't a lipstick stain or a late-night text. It was the silence. The comfortable, easy silence we used to share had been replaced by a tense, heavy quiet that felt like a stranger in our own home. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 7 years. We were high school sweethearts, the couple everyone said was meant to be. We built a life together, brick by brick, filled with inside jokes, shared dreams, and the kind of deep-seated trust you think is unbreakable, until it isn't. It started subtly. She became more protective of her phone, always keeping it face down. She started having work dinners that stretched late into the night. When I'd ask about her day, her answers became vague, just a collection of empty words. I tried to dismiss it. She's just stressed, I told myself. Her new project at the office is demanding. I wanted to believe it, I truly did. Because the alternative was a gaping void I wasn't ready to face. But denial is a flimsy shield. The small inconsistencies began to pile up, forming a mountain of doubt I could no longer ignore. A friend mentioned seeing her car at a cafe on the other side of town during a time she was supposed to be in a meeting. She'd come home smelling of a cologne that wasn't mine. Each instance was a small crack in the foundation of our marriage. I felt a cold dread creeping into my heart, a feeling I hadn't experienced since I was a child lost in a crowded store. I decided I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I didn't want to become one of those guys who snoops through their partner's phone, but I felt like I was losing my mind. The man I saw in the mirror looked tired, his eyes shadowed with suspicion. I deserved clarity. One evening she fell asleep on the couch, her phone lying on the coffee table. My heart pounded against my ribs. It felt like a betrayal just to pick it up. But the need to know was stronger than my guilt. Her finger unlocked it easily as she slept. And there it was. A thread of messages with a name I didn't recognize. Mark. The messages were explicit. They talked about secret meetings, stolen kisses, and a passion that made my stomach churn. They weren't just messages. They were a detailed log of her betrayal. Every late night at work, every dinner with the girls. It was all there, laid bare in glowing text. The worst part was reading her words about me. He's a good man, but it's just so predictable. I feel alive with you. Those words sliced deeper than any insult. I wasn't just a husband. I was an obstacle. A comfortable, predictable inconvenience. I put the phone down, my hands trembling. The air in the room felt thick, unbreathable. I looked at her, sleeping so peacefully, and I felt nothing. The anger I expected wasn't there. The gut-wrenching sadness was muted. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside me. In that moment, the man who loved her, the man who would have done anything for her, ceased to exist. He was replaced by a stranger, hollowed out by the truth. I didn't want to scream or break things. The fight had gone out of me before it even began. What was there to fight for? The woman I loved was a phantom, a character she played while her real life happened elsewhere. I walked into our bedroom, the room we had painted together, the room where we had shared our deepest fears and wildest dreams. I packed a small bag, just the essentials. My toothbrush, a change of clothes, my laptop. As I moved around the room, it felt like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Each object held a memory, but the memories were now tainted, like old photographs faded and warped by water damage. The photo of our wedding day on the nightstand seemed to mock me, our smiling faces so full of hope and naive certainty. I walked back into the living room. Sarah was still asleep, oblivious. I stood there for a long moment, looking at her face. I tried to find a trace of the girl I fell in love with, the woman I married. I couldn't. All I saw was a stranger who had shared my bed and broken my heart. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel a need for confrontation. The truth was enough. Yelling wouldn't change what she did. Crying wouldn't undo the lies. The only thing left to do was to leave. I took off my wedding ring and placed it gently on the coffee table next to her phone. It was a simple, quiet gesture, but it felt like the heaviest thing I had ever done. It was the final period at the end of a long, beautiful, and ultimately heartbreaking chapter of my life. I didn't need to slam the door. I didn't need a dramatic exit. My absence would be the only statement necessary. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The world was quiet. The streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement. I looked back at the house one last time, the warm light spilling from the windows. It was no longer my home. It was just a building full of ghosts. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had hit rock bottom and realized the only way to go was up. It was the smile of acceptance, the smile of release. And as I walked away into the darkness, I wasn't walking away from her. I was walking toward myself. The days that followed were a blur of logistics and quiet reflection. I stayed with a friend who, to his credit, didn't ask too many questions. He just gave me a couch, a beer, and the space I needed. Sarah called, of course. A lot. First, the messages were confused. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Then, when she must have found the ring, they turned frantic. "We need to talk. Please call me. This is a misunderstanding." But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a very clear understanding. I finally answered one of her calls, not out of obligation but for my own closure. Her voice was a torrent of excuses, apologies, and pleas. She cried. She said it meant nothing. She said she loved me. But the words were hollow. I listened patiently, without interruption. When she was finished, there was a long pause. "Are you going to say anything?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No," I replied calmly. "There's nothing left to say. I know everything, Sarah. I wish you the best." And I hung up. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting myself. Her chaos was no longer my storm to weather. Some people might think my reaction was cold or unnatural. They expect fireworks, screaming matches, shattered plates. But sometimes the most profound response is silence. My silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was the understanding that my energy was better spent on healing myself than on fueling a fire of her making. Walking away with a quiet smile was my victory. It was me choosing peace over drama, my future over a broken past. The night I found out wasn't the end of my world. It was the beginning of a new one, a world where I was the sole author of my own story. And the first chapter was titled Freedom. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone, and your peace is the most important thing. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. Your support means the world. Take care.